Well, I think we'll start right now. My name is Oscar Rodriguez. I'm the product marketing manager of MPS. I create this talk named Create a Programming Language that the whole company can understand. What I'm talking about in here is domain-specific languages. This is like the agenda that I create. I will explain a little bit about domain-specific language in general, a little bit of MPS in overview because it's the tool that I'm using to show you some examples. There's also more tools that create the same domain-specific languages. I will go to why bother, why they are important, and some examples. And at the end, I will make a demo to show you something that we have created for you. Okay, before start, can you raise a hand who knows what is domain-specific language? Okay, I guess everyone, so that's cool. Well, for those, this is like the good definition about it. It's a programming language that raises the level of abstraction and uses the specific concepts and terminology of a specific domain. Something that the domain-specific language more popular are this kind of HTML or SQL. I don't want to really get these ones an example because there's a lot of other examples that I will show you in this presentation that it goes directly to a specific domain. So, as I told you, I'm going to use MPS because MPS is a tool that I use to create this, well, that I work in, and the one that we use to create these kind of languages. Just a little bit of background of the tool. It's created by JetBrains. It's an open source language workbench to design and create domain-specific languages. Well, JetBrains is a company that is well known to create development tools, also create Kotlin and MPS. Okay, first, why bother? Why is important domain-specific languages? This is the typical scenario of a product development. First is the developers. Then on the other side is the non-developers or domain experts, the one that they want to create the product or make any kind of change of the system. This is what normally happens. You have a developer of a specific language, and the arrows define the requirements of what the domain expert wants. So this is the ideal situation. But what happens sometimes, well, most of the times, is that the communication is not the same. Other times that the communication is maybe the same, but the developer doesn't understand exactly what is the domain, like the field of the domain. Because, I mean, it's understandable because the guy is a developer, the domain expert is an expert on the field. And sometimes your senior developer gets out of the project with all the knowledge and with all the expertise of the code, and you are screwed. So what happened with DSLs is a language designer creates a DSL for this specific domain so the domain expert and other people can use it. So what happened is now junior developers in a product that you normally need senior developers can work on it. Sometimes even developers can work with domain expert in the same language, and sometimes you don't even need a developer to start working with this domain-specific language. So the benefits is increase of productivity, quality, and high level of abstraction. I will go to each one separately. First, productivity. GPL stands for General Purpose Languages, which is other kind of languages like Java, C, whichever. LE stands for Language Engineering. So at the beginning, there's an initial effort to create the language. But when you start adding more function, the effort decreases because the language is already there. So in the long term, it's more productive. It's more productive. The quality is better, it's increased because the code is shorter, so that means less bugs. It's easy to analyze and review because the level of abstraction is higher, and the domain, you can customize the error messages for the domain, so it can be more understandable for well, for the people that they use that specific DSL. And there's a safer mode because they cannot generate or construct more code to this domain, the DSL. They have to use the language of that. So it's safer in that way. And well, higher level of abstraction. It encourages communication between the domain experts and the developers, and also preserves all the expertise of the domain experts because they are the ones that they are developing with this language. Of course, the implementation of the experts. What we found out is that it's better to explain with examples. So I brought you some examples here. This is a German company, insurance company. What they were doing before, it was they were creating this Word document very similar to this one, and they were creating in Microsoft Word. There was not anything fancy of IDEs, features that we all know, and they were creating this Word document, sending to India. India developers were coding this, using these specific requirements to create C code, send it back to Germany, and then insert it to the system. As you probably will imagine, there were a lot of problems like on the whole process. But if we go through the Word document, this domain is very structured. They have functions, they have this kind of package type that it can be even libraries, attributes, some kind of documentation that most leaders is better than the one of the developers. And these equations are equations from mathematical equations. So what they create a DSL, which is this one, that looks very similar to the Word document. So basically the people from the German insurance company that are non-developers are able to use this one and generate C code. So basically you don't need to send you don't need the Indian developers anymore. And of course, you have all the features of an IDE, code completion, error checking, refactoring, navigation, as you can see here. There's a second example, is one that I like very much because it's from the healthcare industry. This is a Siemens project. This is a DSL to create and design tomographies. So what they were doing before, there were the doctors, the experts on how to use this machine, using a different kind of tools, mostly Microsoft Office, and communicating with a developer, and the developer using other different kinds of software to use the machine. So what they found out, there was really a mess in there because it became more complex when they want to add anything or any kind of feature. So with this domain-specific language, this is the solution. At the end, the doctors are the ones that they are creating the code, so they can use it to create tomographies, and it generates on-demand reports in Excel and Word. I don't have like a picture of this one because right now it's just a start to production. So I hope later on we can show you more about this one. Before I start the demo, I would like to just explain a little bit of this technology that we use in MPS. It's projectional editing. What we're doing here is when you are coding in MPS, you are editing the abstract syntax tree. So normally in other compilers and IDEs, you have the developer, they create the code that is text, and there's a parser, and the parser creates the abstract syntax tree. In MPS, no. In MPS, what you do is you just are modifying the abstract syntax tree from the beginning. Why we're doing this? Because this lets you more break the boundaries of the text. Because as we know, like code is text, but with this new approach, you can make graphs, tables, and any kind of numerical. Like I have these examples, like this. These are basically, this is code. And well, this is an abstract syntax tree. It's how it's what you basically skip, and you are just in MPS, you are changing this tree. So now, okay, I will show you some demos. Just wait a second because I need to change the so I can see. Great. Good. Okay. Well, I have two examples for you. The first one is robot Kaya. Kaya is a set of languages that I will show you. I will run it so you can see it. This is like a robot that we use it for sample to teach MPS. So it's a robot that is looking for a specific one in this example. And everything it's written in here, in this script, small script. And as you can see, it's basically just words that is very descriptive that you can see kind of what is happening in the code. So if we go like to the script, you can see the libraries. Here you can go like to the definition of the libraries. Very like they're very intuitive. You have all what you can like create as any other kind of language. Also, you have the benefit of all the ID features. It's called completion, error checking, script, step. And also, for example, if I do 2 times a step, there's a warning that they customize it for this specific DSL, which says that you can use a different approach for a repetitive instruction. So if I go to the intention, which is Alt Enter, you can just replace the code, and it's an easier way to write 10 times a step, for example. Also, there are like the methods. You can go to, for example, turn left, or no, you can go like to the methods, sniff around. You can see what is like sniff around, and also have like the refactoring or navigation. So you have all the benefits of the ID in a very simple code that, as you can see, is very readable. The second example that I want to show you is, for me, is more interesting because it's a business case. This is a voice menu. This voice menu are the voice menu systems are the recording that you hear when you call a company and saying all the options that you need to dial to get to a specific area or department. So this DSL was made by 2 of our interns in 1 month without previous knowledge of language engineering or DSLs. So you can know how complex can it be. Also, this example is mostly for is targeted for a receptionist and a secretary, because these people are the ones that know more about this. They know who is on vacation, who needs like to change the number, knows when they have to change from a different department, and they are the ones that the best end users to use this DSL. So, just for you to know, this voice menu generates 4 languages. The first one is HTML. For example, if I go in model properties, you can check the language that you want to use. I will use HTML. So if I generate the code that generates this DSL, is this HTML script. Then if I go like to an online generator, HTML generator, it's just like an HTML script just to show it in web. Also, this language generates XML. you can just switch the HTML code, choose XML, assuming that there are systems that they need XML to generate these voice menus. So if I generate the text, it's pure XML. Now I will show you the language of Java. So for example, you can change the language and choose Java. Voice menu to Java. So this code generates Java code that actually we create one application so you can see how it looks. We run it. I don't know if there will be sound. Okay. Sound is not working right. Okay, well, just imagine that someone is really saying something. I can show you later this one if you want, but basically it's just we create this dialog so we can show that it's working. Also, in the last language that we create, and is the most useful, is the one of Asterix. Asterix is a software that a lot of companies uses to create this voice menu system for companies. So 20% of all the voice menus of worldwide are made with Asterix. So because we wanted to create a real case, a scenario for this business particular case, we decided to create also an Asterix code, so you can upload it to the Asterix server and create a real voice menu that people really use. So for example, if I change to Asterix, Asterix generates two files. The one is configuration, and the other one is the one that defines the whole structure of the voice menu. So this is like the file that you send to the Asterix server to see to create the voice menu. Now I would like to show you how easy it is to create it. This is an RCP. This is a standalone IDE, as you can see here. So I will create a new project. It's called Project 22 in a new window. So as I told you, this project is focused for the receptionist and the secretary. We create a lot of user interviews so people with a non-technical background can create this language. So because of that, I would use mostly the mouse, the trackpad, and just just the keyboard when really I need it. There's we also modify the options in here. So normally in MPS, in the whole IDE, you can have a lot of options here, but because, as I told you, it's focused for an end user, we decide just to keep the basic. So for example, I will use context action. So you can see, for example, voice menu, for example. Now, from here, all the options that I can do are always showing in the context section. I would like to add a playback. A playback is welcome to the greetings of the voice menu. Then if I go here, you create an event, which is like the first option of the voice menu. You can choose the number in here or in the context action. It doesn't matter. So for example, cable. Then I want to set up the cable. What happened when they press 1 is cable. So in this case, I want a direct call to 123. Then I can create a new event. Also choose a different number. Internet. Set up the internet. You can also create a new menu here inside the internet. It can be whichever, 1, billing, and from billing, a direct call to whatever. So as you can see, it's very simple to create a voice menu, and I just use the trackpad and a lot of help of the context action. Of course, there's a lot of shortcuts that you can do it to make it more efficient for the developer, but we are targeting a non-developer. Okay, so back to the presentation. Okay. Okay, we have customers of different industries. Different industries are using DSLs. These are like some examples of users that we know that they're using at least MPS. As I told you, there are other language workbenches that they can use. All of them, they are good in different kind of areas. Now I want to focus on why they have to use language workbench, when to use language workbench. So the short answer is when you have a lot of these kind of documents. When there are departments syncing in Office documents, in Visual Basic documents. So when there's a big potential of automation, there's a high involvement of domain experts required, and there's a high dependency of developers. There's like the main three things that why it would be good to use a language workbench. So now talking about the risk and the challenges of using a DSL. The first one is in terms of economics. So you have to know if there's an added value between the cost of using or develop and using generic or inadequate tools between building a DSL, maintaining the whole system, if there's a big added value in terms of money. This added value, we can see sometimes it's even like 200% or 300%. So it has to be really a big added value so it can be worth doing it. Well, language design skills is needed. The language designer, you need like to really study and learn about all these kind of good practices. There's a learning curve. You need to know like the good practices of creating a language, so it can be easy and with a good user experience, and of course elegance, so you can target the correct end user. There's always a cultural challenge because you're telling like developers to learn something new and to create different language, because what we hear a lot is that developers always say like they can create the same thing in another language, in Java, C, whichever. But I would like to just respond this and end the talk with a quote of Sergey Dmitriev. He's the co-founder of JetBrains and also the father of MPS, who says in this article that you can find online, The Next Programming Paradigm, "Sure, I can do anything on a computer, but some things take me years of effort when it shouldn't take much less time. Something is wrong." So that's it. That's the end of that talk. So now I think if you have any questions, how much time we have? 10 minutes. Okay, so we have you have questions? Any kind of question?
So how do you create the language? Can you show an example of what that phone language looks like? Or?
Sure. Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm using, as I told you, MPS. This is the languages that we use in Robot Kaya are these three. So they're like every language has different different aspects. There are structure, editor, action, constraints, and type system, and a generator. I don't know if you want me like to create, or I don't like the question. If you want me like to create a language or just. Well, I mean, this one it was created for, it took time. I mean, it's, the thing like, I will show you like examples of MPS in specific. For example, for every language we have something that we call concepts, which from the concepts, there's some attributes to really work with them. There's also the editor. I guess something very interesting would be the editor. For example, the editor is the editor that you create, and you can define what you want to show to the user. So basically, the editor is the one that communicates with the concept and creates like and generates the code to create the abstract syntax tree. I don't know which. I think like it would be like. I mean, I recommend you better like to see a tutorial because creating a language, I mean, it takes time. Any other questions?
So what are the main?
I would like to work a bit with MPS before I noticed that the editor really stands in the way, as in the projection editor. Like, for example, at least if you're writing a programming language at DSL, let's say you add, for example, an if block, you really have to go inside the bracket of an if block to write. Is there a way to change this editor to make it behave more like a text editor when you use it?
No. As such, MPS is what you are writing is an abstract syntax tree. So there's like the pros is that you can create tables, graphs, and all these things that I already told you. And the con is like you don't use text. I mean, when you start using for the first time MPS, you will think that it's a weird IDE because it's not like possible. For example, I will show you. I cannot only just write text share because it doesn't work like that. So you have to get used to the idea that this paradigm of code is not only text, at least for this IDE. And what we have found out is like after a couple of days of just using MPS, people start like getting used to that, and there's a lot of shortcuts and ways to improve your productivity with it. Also, what I can recommend you, well, you can go always to our website. We have some examples, some tutorials, and of course in other tools they also have tutorials. So what the idea of this presentation is like to welcome you to the DSL world and to try this new well, it's not new technology, but this technology, because we believe that there's a lot of potential of DSLs in any company, but they are still not as popular as other solutions. I don't know if there's more questions.
So what is the main difference of MPS versus XText and XBase?
Well, there are different tools. The main difference will be the projectional editing. In XText, you are writing text. In MPS, you use projectional editing, which I told you is mostly to create different kind of structure. I guess more questions. Do you want to see them? I think. Well, yeah. Sorry, I couldn't like finish like the whole. I think we'll have 5 minutes, so we can just leave it at that. Or if you have more questions, leave it like this.